Good afternoon. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity for me to speak about the topic that dear in my heart. And the topic is today is what? It's chaos, right? And it's TEDxMongKok. And what a place to start to talk about chaos. Because Mongkok is right in the heart of Hong Kong, where Hong Kong is the east and the west meeting together. And Mongkok is right at the center in Hong Kong. So as the only locally born and locally living speaker, let's start with Mongkok. So what is Mongkok? Mongkok, if you just such an interesting place, if you just 1 or 2 kilometers south of Mongkok is where we are, right? Nathan Road, just go south, is where we are, Tsim Sha Tsui. Tsim Sha Tsui, if you're looking around, it is a place where full of luxurious brand, Class A office building. I spend half my time in this part of the town because I'm a leadership trainer. I go to different office and train managers as leaders. So I spend roughly half of my time here. And I also spend half of my time north of Mongkok. Sham Shui Po is the poorest region in Hong Kong. It has the lowest average income. It is the 4th least educated district in Hong Kong. So, Mongkok is right in the middle of the poor and the rich, two very different forces coming together. And if you know chaos, if you know what storm formed, how storm is formed, is when the warm water meet the cold water. It's when the two different forces meet together, it has chaos. When you talk about chaos, people usually, when I talk about chaos, it's something bigger than Mongkok. It's like last year, the aftermath of Japan, earthquake. It's after 9/11. It's the Arab Spring going on in Middle East. It's the Occupy Wall Street. Right? These are all chaos. There's big things happening around the world, and it's messy. It's disorder. Right? So the thing is, human nature don't like chaos. This is just a picture of this morning. I took my daughter's desk. And my wife is away. She's in US right now. But if my wife saw the desk of my 8-year-old daughter, she will just, Ilya, go and fix it. Right? We don't like chaos. When we see chaos, when we see disorder, we want to deal with it. We want to control. We want to put the structure in place to control it. So we humans don't like chaos. That's why we put in a typical organization structure to deal with it. And this is the typical triangle top-down model that we put in place. We put a leader on top. That can be your boss. In my home, that's my wife, not me. And though they have the authority, they have the power, and set up all the protocol and policy and things like that, and the follower just listen and obey. It worked beautifully when the world is static. It worked very well if you want to drive efficiency, predictability, and controllability. However, we are living in a world like this. So the top-down hierarchical structure, where the leaders on top, it also promotes excessive self-interest. The leaders on the top always want to protect the self-interest. They don't want change. And the top-down triangle model face now the biggest challenge. It's the 21st century of chaos. So there are many researchers that are thinking about, okay, how do we better lead in a chaotic world? So it goes to study the chaos theory. Okay, chaos theory is one of the 3 new science, like quantum mechanics, general relativity, and also chaos are the 3 key pillars of the new science. And their leadership, organization, research are looking at those new science and say, what can we learn from it? And when they study chaos, beside messiness, beside all this ugliness, actually, at some certain right initial condition, beautiful patterns can emerge. And they call it a very technical name. Allow me to use a technical term. The only technical term I'm going to use is called strange attractor. Those, if you study chaos theory, you know that that's the term. Because scientists are scratching their head. At some strange initial condition, complete chaos can suddenly become beautiful, strange patterns. That's so magnificent. So instead of looking at the latest science, some of the researchers looking back at the history, perhaps it is ancient history, ancient wisdom that can reveal some of the insight how to deal with the chaotic world. In the Western world, this Judeo-Christian view, Jesus already 2,000 years ago taught the disciples, in order to lead, you have to be the servant. In order to have the influencing power, you have to be the servant. That's why he not just talking about servanthood, he demonstrates to his disciple that to wash the feet of the follower. And that makes me very curious. Is that only in the Western world? Is that concept, you want to become a leader, you want to be a servant, is that only in the West? So I look at the Chinese history. There was another guy called Lao Tzu. And a few thousand years ago, he already wrote that the perfect leader, he used the term sage, the perfect leader is the one who serves. And he used a beautiful analogy to describe leadership. He basically described leaders should be wateristic, should be like water. Water flows from high to low. Water serves people. Water nourishes people. And he used that analogy beautifully to describe the leaders should be a servant to serve people's need. So researchers like Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s coined the term servant leadership. Based on that idea, it's an upside-down model. Instead of the leaders at the top, the leader should be at the bottom. Instead of giving all the order, giving all the instruction, all the command, the leaders at the bottom give service, empower, and also care and support the one. And with that model, it can unleash the adaptability. It can unleash the creativity. And that's the essence of how we deal with the ever-changing, chaotic world. So to just put things into not just organization perspective, but put things into individual perspective. Even go further, everybody here, everybody can be a servant leader. Doesn't matter what position you are. You can be a servant and a leader, just providing peer-to-peer mutual service to each other. Okay? And that's the whole idea of the servant leadership. I got fascinated about this idea about 4 years ago because I was crazy enough to start my PhD program, my 5th degree 4 years ago in leadership. So I got fascinated about that idea. And I just find out that that idea is not just, it's already starting to be carried out in some of the leading companies like Medtronic, like Southwest Airlines, like TD Industries, and Miller-Hyman. Herman Miller. So those are some of the leading companies in their own field starting to use that concept in the organization. And they got fascinated results. If you are in the airline industry, you know that the only non-bankrupt U.S. company in the airline industry is the Southwest Airlines. Right? They are hugely successful. the main motto of the company is to serve the employee and to serve the customer. So, as being a leadership researcher and a leadership trainer, when I got this idea, I find that it has to be applicable in this part of the world as well. All those companies that are researched, it's all happening in the West. But if Laozi was the one who actually had that idea a few thousand years ago, it should also work in this part of the world. So I got fascinated about this idea, and the whole idea is to really help different organizations to adopt this concept. If you want to lead, learn to serve. But one thing I also found, it has to be starting earlier. Because it's not about skills. Skills can be learned when you are 30s and 40s. But mindset, you have to start early. So 3 years ago, I have the opportunity to start a servant leadership program with some of the leading universities in Hong Kong. We started a program called SLOT, Servant Leadership Operation Training. And we know leadership training cannot be just taught in the classroom. You need to be experienced. You need to go out and action and serve the community. So we partner with the Hong Kong government. It's an interesting side story. Hong Kong government, you know that one of the key social issues in Hong Kong is inequality, poverty. You saw the Sham Shui Po picture, right? There are many rich people, like many of you sitting here. There are also very poor people in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong government feel that, let's try to solve this problem. The key thing is about the next generation of children. Let's give them a computer so that they can learn the Wikipedia and the Google, and they can use the computer to learn. Brilliant idea? No. Why? Because the Hong Kong government is handing out computer without training. So just, all right, go and use it. What Chandra said this morning, 50% of the traffic is what? Pornography, gambling, cyberbullying. Without somebody that walk with the poverty children, you are giving them a sword that can be very dangerous. They can get into addiction and things like that. But the Hong Kong government doesn't care about that because it's just a top-down organization. So what we partner with the Hong Kong government by not just giving them a computer, not a hardware, not a software, but the hardware. We are training university students as servant leader to serve as a e-mentor, to walk with the children in Sham Shui Po area for not 1 month, not 2 months, but 8 months, to walk together, to help them not just a computer skill, but to serve them, but to help them to be successful. We also partner with some of the largest companies in Hong Kong, like IBM. They are a strategic partner. They are sending volunteers in business to be the bottom coach. They are not leading the team, but they are helping the university student as mentor to serve the underprivileged kids in Sham Shui Po and other area in Hong Kong. So that program started 2 years ago. It started with just 50 pairs, and then now we are stupid enough to commit in 2 years' time we need to serve 1,000 pairs of mentors and mentees. That gives basically any world city that is probably the biggest mentorship program in the world. Not just Hong Kong UST, but we're working with City University, Ivy, Lingnan University to have more and more university students. Just not stuff them with new computer technology only, but to train them with a servant heart. So that when they graduate, they know how to lead. And not just lead by power, they lead by serving others. So any good TED talk has to have a story. So let me talk about one story with you. The picture on this side, his name is called Michael. He's a Chinese, but he's not actually from Hong Kong. He's actually studying in UST. He came from mainland China. Okay? And he got a scholarship in Hong Kong. He's actually the dean list of UST in computer science, computer engineering. Top student. And when we share about the slot program with him, he enrolled in this program. And we matched him with Eric. Eric is another stranger in Hong Kong. He's not from Hong Kong, obviously. He's from India. The whole family migrated from India to Hong Kong when he was young, and he's living in Sham Shui Po. When Michael and Eric met 2 years ago, Eric was a typical Sham Shui Po kid without any dream. He seems to be trapped in Sham Shui Po. You know some new immigrants in Hong Kong? Although they have been living in Hong Kong for many years, they never see the sea. They are trapped in the local region. Many of them don't never go to Tsim Sha Tsui to see the sea, to see the harbor. They are trapped in those cage-like home every day. So Eric met with Michael. Two strangers meeting each other up. We don't know what happened afterwards. But strange things happen. Since we introduced Michael with Eric, Eric also got a computer so they can chat online. And Michael not only chat online using MSN and things like that. On average, every 2 weeks, Michael go all the way from UST campus to Sham Shui Po to visit Eric. Ask him what kind of dreams you have. What are things that are stopping you to go out of Sham Shui Po? So they built this bondage, and that's started in 2010, and right now in 2012. And let me tell you, they are continuing that friendship, that mentorship until now. I remember one time Eric told me that Michael was kind enough to bring him out of Sham Shui Po and bring him to his campus, to let him see UST campus, to let him see dorm life, to introduce him with the roommate. And that inspired him. An ethnic minority in Hong Kong, a discriminated race in Hong Kong, can also still have hope to be like Michael, one day to go to university. So, I just want to introduce Michael. Michael is actually here. I wish we also invited Eric, but today, the very day, 5 o'clock, he's actually going through the Hong Kong diploma exam for oral English. Exam today. And because of Michael, Eric now have a dream. He dreamed to study psychology. He enrolled into City University psychology program. And Michael asked him, why you want to study psychology? Because Eric told Michael, hey, I want to help my fellow Southeast Asian people in Hong Kong, that they are being discriminated, they are being not given the privilege to have hope. But I saw, and Eric saw many mental and psychology problems in his community. And because of Michael, he was given hope that he can be a servant leader like Michael one day, to be the mentor, to be the counselor, to help the next Eric in Sham Shui Po. And that's not only the only pair. Yes, not every pair worked, I have to admit. But at some right condition, at some right initial condition, it worked. And beautiful things happen because of that strange attraction. So, we talk about chaos today, right? Chaos can be, this is the picture, complete mess, complete ugliness. But at some right condition, initial condition, it can emerge with beautiful patterns. And that's what we call strange attractors. Michael and Eric is a strange attraction. One from India, the other from mainland China, but somehow they work. And they serve each other. I also heard that Michael also learned a lot from Eric about what's the ethnic culture in India, what are the street smart things you can learn. It's a mutual two-way learning between the mentor and the mentorship. And not because they have all the coaching skills or the mentorship skill, it's about the right initial condition. And what is the right initial condition? In human, the initial condition is the motive. It's whether you are serving your self-interest first or you're serving others first. It's all about the initial condition. It's all about the human motive. Let me end this talk by using one of my favorite quotes. Well, it's actually cut out. It's actually Margaret Whitley. Margaret Whitley is one of the earlier writers about chaos, about servant leadership. I believe we can change the world if we start talking to one another again. My talk ends with a calling. As I said, servant leadership is not just the organization model. It can be applicable to every one of you. Right? Just by lending a hand out, just by shutting off your iPhone and your Android and your BlackBerry and genuinely listen to one another. Have a conversation that understands the dream, understand the potential, understand the difficulties, and ask, how can I help you? How can I serve you? That's the initial condition. And maybe, just maybe, if you have that right motive, you can create many, many more beautiful pictures like this in the world. Just like what Michael did to Eric. Thank you.